The steel door shut in my face at 7:26 p.m. A second later, I heard the lock engage. My wife stood on the other side of the narrow observation window in a dark blue corrections uniform, one hand still on the control panel. "Stay here until I sort this out," she said. I stared at her. "You just put your husband in a prison cell." Warden Marissa Cole did not blink. "It's an interview room with a secure door. There was a stainless steel toilet in the corner. A concrete bunk bolted to the wall. A scratched polycarbonate window too narrow for my shoulders. Call it whatever helps you sleep." Her jaw tightened. "Ethan, stop making this worse." I almost laughed. 30 minutes earlier, I had found 6 contraband cell phones, $2,300 in cash, and 2 bottles of prescription oxycodone inside a locked equipment cabinet belonging to Deputy Warden Caleb Voss. Caleb was also the man sleeping with my wife. And now I was the one behind bars. My name is Ethan Cole. For 14 years, I worked in correctional security systems. Not as an officer. Not as a guard. I designed and audited the electronic systems guards depended on when physical control failed. Door interlocks. Emergency release circuits. Camera coverage. Staff duress alarms. Movement control logs. My company, Grayline Secure Technologies, serviced 17 state correctional facilities across the Midwest. Blackridge Correctional Center was one of them. My wife ran it. That was exactly why I had never personally approved an audit finding there. Grayline had a conflict protocol. Anything involving Blackridge went through my operations director, Priya Bell, and our state contract manager. I could enter the prison as an authorized contractor. I could inspect our equipment. I could not evaluate Marissa's management. We had spent 6 years telling ourselves that line was enough. It had worked until my marriage stopped working. I learned about Marissa and Caleb 4 months earlier. No anonymous photograph. No hotel receipt. No dramatic confession. I saw his message on her phone while she was in the shower. "Wish you were still here. Your side of the bed is cold." There are sentences a husband does not need explained. Marissa admitted the affair that night. She said it had been going on for 3 months. She cried. Said Blackridge had consumed her life. Said Caleb understood the pressure because he lived inside the same walls every day. I asked if it was over. She said yes. I stayed. I am not proud of how quickly I converted humiliation into logistics. We had a mortgage. 12 years of marriage. A daughter in college. A company whose largest state client knew us as a married couple. And beneath all of that, I still loved her. So I stayed. Caleb remained deputy warden because firing him immediately after the affair ended would have created its own employment problems. Marissa formally disclosed the relationship to the State Corrections Ethics Office. The department moved supervision of Caleb's performance reviews and discipline to the regional director. On paper, the conflict was controlled. I hated it. But I understood why systems existed for situations where people's personal lives became ugly without automatically becoming legal violations. Then I found the phones. That evening, Grayline had scheduled a firmware replacement on Blackridge's East Wing movement control system. The prison housed just over 1,400 inmates. Medium security. No death row. No cinematic underground dungeon. Mostly concrete, fluorescent light, steel, paperwork, and people trying to get through shifts without making the news. I arrived at 5:50 p.m. My technician team was already inside. Marissa knew I was coming. We had spoken for 12 seconds at breakfast. East Wing tonight? Yes. How late? 10, maybe. I'll probably still be there. Neither of us mentioned dinner. That had become normal. At 6:40, one of my technicians needed access to an old relay cabinet in the administrative security corridor. The cabinet was partially blocked by a portable evidence cart and 2 maintenance cases. I moved the cases. Behind them sat a black hard-shell equipment box. Grayline used identical boxes for network analyzers. I assumed it was ours. It was not. The label read, C. Voss, Security Operations. I should have left it alone. Then I noticed the latch. No evidence seal. No inventory tag. And a state property control sticker that had been peeled halfway off. That was unusual enough that I called the Blackridge property officer. Ramon, does security ops store field gear outside the East Relay room? No. I've got a Voss case here. What kind? Black Pelican-style equipment case. Silence. Don't open it. I wasn't planning to. I'm coming. Before Ramon arrived, Caleb did. He came around the corridor fast enough that he was slightly out of breath. What are you doing here? I looked at the case. Firmware upgrade. I mean with my equipment. It was blocking our cabinet. I'll move it. He grabbed the handle. I noticed a phone charger cable caught beneath the lid. Not a prison-issued device connector. A regular USB-C cable. Personal cell phones were prohibited inside Blackridge except for tightly controlled authorized devices. Staff could not simply carry one past the secure perimeter. I said, "What's in the box?" Caleb looked at me. "None of your business. That cable says otherwise." His face changed. Only slightly. But I knew. "Ethan. Open it. You don't have authority to search my property." "Correct." I stepped away. So we wait for Ramon. That was when Caleb made the mistake. He picked up the case and tried to leave. I did not touch him. I did not block him. I simply called the central control desk from the wall phone. "This is Ethan Cole, contractor credential G714. I have a potentially unlogged electronic device inside the secure perimeter. Please send property control and shift commander to East Admin Relay." Caleb stared at me. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Probably. Those are evidence devices. Then they'll have evidence numbers." He said nothing. Ramon arrived with Captain Elise Navarro less than 2 minutes later. Caleb changed immediately. Professional voice. Controlled posture. I was relocating an evidence support kit. Ramon looked at the case. "Where's the seal?" "It was accessed earlier." "By who?" "Me." "Chain of custody log?" "In my office." Captain Navarro asked, "Why is it in a maintenance corridor?" Caleb's irritation returned. "Because I put it there temporarily." Ramon did not touch the case. "Deputy Warden, I need you to set it down." Caleb looked at him. For a second, nobody moved. Then he placed it on the floor. Ramon called internal investigations. Standard procedure. That was all it should have been. Secure the box. Verify the paperwork. If legitimate, move on. If not, escalate. Then Marissa arrived. She had been called because her deputy warden was involved. She looked first at Caleb. Then me. "What happened?" Captain Navarro explained. Marissa listened. Caleb said, "It seized electronic evidence from the South Unit. I moved it because Internal Affairs asked me to check communications tied to gang coordination." Ramon asked, "Case number?" "I don't remember it." Marissa looked at him. "You personally removed it from evidence?" "It never went into the main cage. Intelligence held it separately." "Who authorized that?" Caleb hesitated. "Chief Baines." Chief Baines had retired 3 weeks earlier. "Convenient." Marissa looked at me. "How did you get involved?" "I moved 2 cases blocking our relay cabinet and found his box. And then? I saw an unauthorized phone cable and called control." Her eyes hardened. "You opened it?" "No." Caleb said, he was about to. "That's a lie." "Ethan." I looked at my wife. He tried to walk away with it before property control arrived. Marissa turned toward Caleb. "Did you?" "I was moving my equipment out of his work area." Ramon said, "We should open it under camera and inventory it." "Correct. Simple." Marissa nodded. "Do it." We moved to the property control room. The entire process was recorded. Ramon put on gloves. Captain Navarro witnessed. Caleb stood on one side. Marissa on the other. I stayed near the doorway because technically I had no reason to remain. Then Ramon opened the case. 6 cell phones. 2 small plastic bottles. Cash in mixed denominations. 3 charging cables. A handwritten sheet with inmate identification numbers beside dates and dollar amounts. Nobody spoke. Ramon lifted one bottle. Oxycodone. The pharmacy label had been removed. Caleb said immediately, "Confiscated contraband." Ramon asked, "Where are the evidence bags?" "They were removed for testing." "Why are the phones powered?" "Intelligence extraction." "By who?" "Me." Captain Navarro said, "You're not certified for mobile extraction." Caleb snapped, "I supervise intelligence." "That wasn't my question." Marissa stared at the contents. I watched her face. Shock came first. Then fear. Then calculation. I knew that expression. I had seen it during lawsuits and legislative hearings. She was deciding which fire mattered most. I said, call the Inspector General. Marissa turned. Not yet. Every person in the room looked at her. She continued. We secure the box, verify whether there is an active intelligence file, then notify regional. Ramon frowned. Warden, unlogged controlled medication and cash inside the perimeter. I heard you. The policy says immediate notification. I know the policy. Then. I said secure it. Caleb looked at her. That one glance told me more than I wanted. Not romance. Expectation. He expected her to create time. I said, Marissa. Not here. Exactly here. Her eyes flashed. You're a contractor. And your deputy warden has 6 contraband phones and unlogged narcotics in a private case. You do not know they're unlogged. Neither do you. Captain Navarro shifted slightly between us. Marissa said, Ethan, leave the secure area. No problem. I turned. Then Caleb said, you need to make sure he doesn't leave with photographs. I stopped. I had taken none. Marissa looked at my phone. Did you photograph the case? No. Give me the phone. No. This is a secure facility. My device was approved at entry and contains company data. You were present during a potential criminal evidence discovery. Then preserve the room and call the Inspector General. Her voice dropped. Give me your phone. I looked at her. No. That was the moment everything changed. Not when I found the contraband. When my wife decided I was the easier person to control. She looked at Captain Navarro. Place Mr. Cole in secure interview pending review of his device access and statement. Navarro stared at her. Warden. You heard me. I almost laughed. You're detaining me. Administrative security hold. Under what authority? You're inside a correctional facility during an active contraband investigation. I reported the contraband. And now I need to establish what information left the area. Ramon said quietly, Warden, he's not an inmate. I know that. Then we can escort him to the public administration conference room. Marissa's eyes went to me. Then to Caleb. No. Secure interview 3. That was a converted short-term holding cell beside intake. Used occasionally for external law enforcement interviews when a person in custody needed separation. It was not where civilian contractors were held. I looked at her. Are you sure? Her face tightened. Do not make this dramatic. You're about to lock your husband in a prison cell to control what he says about your lover's contraband. Caleb said, that's enough. I turned toward him. You don't get a vote. Marissa pointed toward the corridor. Now. Captain Navarro did not cuff me. I respected her for that much. She escorted me to interview 3. Then paused outside. Mr. Cole, I need to tell you I objected to this placement. Put that in writing. I will. Marissa arrived behind us. Navarro asked, do you still want the secure door engaged? Yes. I stepped inside. The door closed. 7:26 p.m. Marissa looked through the window. Stay here until I sort this out. I asked, has the Inspector General been notified? No. Regional Director? I'm handling it. No. You're delaying it. Her face hardened. I am determining whether Caleb's explanation checks out, while locking up the person who found the box. I'm preserving the integrity of the investigation. You're protecting him. That is not fair. It doesn't have to be fair. It has to be documented. She flinched. Then walked away. I waited 90 seconds. Then pressed the wall intercom. Central Control answered. This is Ethan Cole in interview 3. I am a civilian contractor being held without arrest. I am requesting outside counsel and State Department of Corrections Inspector General notification. The officer on the other end went quiet. Stand by. I will. For once, I meant it. At 7:34, Captain Navarro returned. She opened the door. Regional Director ordered immediate release. That fast. I stepped out. Who called? I did. I looked at her. She held my gaze. The warden ordered me to secure a civilian contractor after he reported contraband involving the deputy warden. I decided that needed review. Good officer. Bad night. I walked straight to the administrative lobby. My phone had never been seized. At 7:39, I made one call. Not to a senator. Not to a judge. Not to some secret friend with power over the prison system. I called the number every state corrections contractor was required to keep in its compliance file. Office of the Inspector General. After Hours Duty Line. This is Special Agent Taryn Lowe. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm an authorized contractor at Black Ridge Correctional Center. What happened? I found a deputy warden's unlogged contraband cache inside the secure perimeter. The warden delayed mandatory notification and then ordered me locked in a secure holding cell when I refused to surrender my phone. A pause. Are you currently detained? No. Regional released me. Was force used? No. Do you have evidence? Property room camera. Corridor camera. Door control logs. Central control intercom. Captain Navarro witnessed the detention order. Deputy warden's name? Caleb Voss. Warden. I looked through the glass doors toward Marissa's office. My wife. Marissa Cole. Another pause. Do not leave the facility yet. I won't. Do not contact either subject. Understood. 27 minutes later, 2 Inspector General agents arrived with a regional corrections administrator. At 8:21, Caleb Voss was removed from duty and escorted out of the secure perimeter. At 8:34, Marissa was called into her own conference room. I did not attend. I did not need to. At 8:48, the regional administrator walked out carrying her state credentials, facility access card, and warden's badge in a clear evidence-style property envelope. Marissa followed him. No handcuffs. No arrest. Administrative leave pending investigation. But the badge was gone. She saw me in the lobby. Her face looked empty. You called them. Yes. You could have talked to me first. I stared at her. I did. She looked toward the envelope holding the badge she had worn for 7 years. This could end my career. I thought about the 6 phones. The cash. The pills. The locked cell. Then I looked back at my wife. No, Marissa. You made the call. You made me the witness you thought you could lock away. Behind her, Inspector General agents were sealing the property room. And for the first time that night, there was nothing left for her to control. By 9:10 p.m., Black Ridge Correctional Center was under temporary regional command. Not lockdown. Not chaos. The prison still had 1,400 inmates who needed counts, medication, meals, and officers at their posts. The regional administrator, Deputy Director Malcolm Reyes, assumed acting authority over the facility while the Inspector General secured the contraband case and reviewed Marissa's detention order. Caleb Voss was placed on administrative suspension and ordered off state property. Marissa was placed on paid administrative leave. Her credentials were surrendered. Her access card was disabled. And until the Inspector General determined what had happened, she was no longer allowed to enter Black Ridge without written authorization. One call had taken her badge. It had not convicted her of anything. That distinction mattered. At 9:18, Special Agent Taryn Lowe sat across from me in a staff training room. Her partner, Agent Joel Harbin, recorded the interview. Taryn was direct. Start before you found the case. I did. Firmware upgrade. Blocked relay cabinet. Black equipment box. Caleb arriving. His attempt to move it. My call to Central Control. Ramon Pierce and Captain Elise Navarro arriving. Property room opening. Phones. Cash. Oxycodone. Marissa delaying Inspector General notification. Her order to place me in interview 3. My release. One call. Taryn interrupted only when something needed a timestamp. Did Deputy Warden Voss threaten you? No. Touch you? No. Direct anyone to use force? No. Did Warden Cole tell you why you were being secured? She said she needed to determine what information left the area and review my device access. Was your phone seized? No. Did anyone ask for consent to inspect it? She demanded I hand it over. I refused. Did she cite a written policy? No. Did she tell you you were under arrest? No. Did she tell you you were free to leave? No. Could you have opened the cell door yourself? No. Taryn looked at Joel. He made a note. Then she asked the question I knew would come. Why do you believe Warden Cole acted to protect Voss rather than simply making a poor security decision? Because Caleb's contraband was sitting in a property room with no obvious chain documentation, the written policy required immediate notification, and she delayed that notification while ordering the reporting contractor confined. Anything else? They had an affair. Taryn's expression did not change. Current? Marissa told me it ended 4 months ago. Did the department know? She disclosed it. Do you know what controls were imposed? Caleb's reviews and discipline went to regional. Anything else? No. She nodded. Do not assume the affair proves motive. I don't. Good. That was exactly why I had called them. I did not want to investigate my wife. I wanted somebody whose marriage was not involved. At 9:47, Taryn ended my interview. You may leave when your contractor equipment is released. Am I needed tomorrow? Probably. Should Greyline suspend work here? Your current maintenance scope? Yes. No. Coordinate through regional command. Do not interact with Warden Cole or Deputy Warden Voss regarding the investigation. Understood. I stood. Then Taryn said, Mr. Cole. I turned. Your call was appropriate. I looked at her. That sounds like something people usually say before bad news. It isn't reassurance. What is it? A factual statement. Fair enough. At 10:22, I left Blackridge. Marissa did not. She was still being interviewed when I drove out. I did not call her. She did not call me. At 6:30 the next morning, Greyline Operations Director Priya Bell called before I finished my first coffee. State Contract Office wants your entire Blackridge access package. Give it to them. Door logs, contractor authorization, East Wing work order, device approval. Yes. They also want our conflict protocol. Good. Priya paused. You okay? Yes. You were locked in a cell by your wife. For 8 minutes. That doesn't answer me. I know. She did not push. Then she said, there's another issue. What? The Inspector General wants Greyline to verify whether the 6 phones ever touched our managed network. That mattered. Blackridge's secure systems were segmented. Contraband cell phones should never touch Greyline infrastructure, but staff access terminals and intelligence devices could generate logs if connected for charging, extraction, or evidence processing. I'll stay out of the analysis. Already planned. Use Marcus Fielding's team. Done. No husband investigating wife. No company owner deciding what evidence meant. That line needed to stay clean. By 10 o'clock, the first real question about Caleb's explanation had an answer. 2 of the 6 phones were legitimate seized evidence. 4 were not. The 2 legitimate devices had been confiscated from inmates during separate searches 6 weeks earlier. Both had evidence numbers. Both were supposed to be in the secured intelligence locker pending extraction. Caleb had signed them out 3 days earlier. Improper storage in a personal equipment case was a violation, but not proof of trafficking. The other 4 phones had no evidence numbers at all. No confiscation reports. No inmate property entries. Nothing. One device contained an active prepaid SIM. Another had recent outgoing calls. That was worse. At 11:30, Taryn called. Did Greyline's analysis find any network interaction? Priya has that. I removed myself. I know. I'm asking whether she told you. No. Good. That almost made me smile. Then she continued. We have enough to keep Voss suspended. I need you for a second interview this afternoon regarding the detention. Why? Because Warden Cole gave a different explanation. Of course she did. What explanation? That she secured you temporarily because you were an authorized civilian inside a restricted evidence area while your personal phone remained in your possession. That is partly true. Yes. And? She says her concern was preservation of confidential inmate information, not protecting Voss. I sat back. Did she explain why she used a locked holding room rather than escorting me to administration? That's what we're examining. Did she explain why she delayed mandatory notification? She says she wanted to establish whether Voss's box was legitimate intelligence material before escalating a potentially career-ending allegation. That sounded exactly like Marissa. Measured. Procedural. Reasonable enough until you placed the actual timeline beside it. Is that allowed? Not when the suspected violation includes unlogged controlled substances and unauthorized communication devices. There it was. Taryn did not need my opinion. The policy would answer. At 1 o'clock, I returned to a regional corrections office rather than Blackridge. Captain Navarro was there. So was Ramon Pierce. We were interviewed separately. By 3, the detention timeline was reconstructed. 7:11 p.m., case opened. 7:13, unlogged phones, cash, and medication identified. 7:14, Ramon recommended Inspector General notification. 7:15, Marissa ordered property secured while she verified Caleb's intelligence explanation. 7:18, Caleb requested my phone be checked for photographs. 7:20, Marissa demanded my phone. 7:21, I refused and requested IG notification. 7:23, she ordered secure interview placement. 7:26, door engaged. 7:28, Captain Navarro called regional director from the corridor. 7:32, regional ordered my immediate release and instructed Blackridge to preserve all records. 7:34, cell opened. 7:39, I called the Inspector General. The 8-minute detention did not become more proper because it was brief. Captain Navarro's statement was blunt. I believed Mr. Cole could be escorted out of the secure area and interviewed in administration. I did not identify an immediate security reason to confine him. Taryn asked if Marissa had been informed of that objection. Yes. What did she say? I need him contained until I know what left the room. Contained. That word would matter. Ramon's statement mattered too. He told Marissa at 7:14 that the combination of controlled medication, ash, and undocumented phones required immediate escalation. She responded. Give me 10 minutes. Caleb may have an intelligence file. 10 minutes. I almost laughed when I read it. Apparently 10 minutes had become my wife's preferred unit for deciding whether rules applied. She did not get 10. By 4:10, the Inspector General had enough to issue interim findings. Caleb's suspension remained. Marissa's administrative leave remained. Neither was criminally charged. The state referred the oxycodone and cash to its Special Investigations Unit. Regional Command would continue at Blackridge for at least 72 hours. Then came the part that directly concerned Marissa. The preliminary finding described my detention as an unauthorized use of secure custody space for a civilian contractor absent arrest authority, immediate safety necessity, or documented investigative basis sufficient to justify confinement. That sentence was not the end of her career. It was enough to keep the badge out of her hand. At 5:20, I received my first call from Marissa. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then answered. Hello. Her voice was exhausted. Are you home? Yes. Can I come there? No. Silence. Ethan. We can talk by phone. I don't want to do this by phone. That didn't bother you when you ordered me into a cell. She stopped. I regretted the cheapness of the line as soon as I said it. Not because it was false. Because I did not need cheap lines. Marissa said quietly, I deserve that. No. You deserve the investigation. Another silence. Then she said, the 4 phones aren't evidence. I heard. Caleb lied to me. Yes. I didn't know. I believe that. She sounded surprised. You do? Yes. The fact that Caleb had contraband did not automatically mean Marissa knew about it. We had to keep those facts separate. Then she asked, do you think I delayed because of him? Yes. Her breath caught. I was trying to confirm before I destroyed his career. You were protecting him from the consequence of being reported. I was making sure the allegation was real. The phones were sitting on the table. 2 were legitimate evidence. And 4 weren't. I didn't know that yet. No. But you knew enough to call the people whose job was to find out. She went quiet. I continued. That's the part you keep skipping. I know. No, Marissa. If Caleb had been any other deputy warden, would you have asked Ramon for 10 minutes before calling IG? She did not answer. That was the first answer. Then I asked, if any other contractor had found the case and refused to surrender a phone, would you have put him in interview 3? Another silence. Finally. I don't know. I closed my eyes. You do. Her voice cracked. Yes. There it was. Why me? I thought you'd understand once I explained. That hurt more than the cell. Because I had heard versions of that sentence throughout our marriage. You'll understand. Ethan can take it. Ethan knows the job. Ethan knows the pressure. I said, you thought being my husband made me safer to control. She started crying. I thought you would wait. For Caleb. For me to find out what happened. No. For Caleb. Her breathing shook. I don't know how to separate those anymore. Then the Inspector General will. That was their job. Marissa whispered, they may fire me. Yes. And you're okay with that? No. She sounded confused. I don't want your career destroyed. Then why did you call? Because whether you keep your badge cannot depend on whether I still love you. She stopped crying for a moment. That was the line both of us needed. The investigation would decide her job. I would decide our marriage. Neither outcome should purchase the other. At 6:03, the state issued its internal notice. Marissa Cole remained warden of Blackridge in title only, on administrative leave with no facility authority pending completion of the Inspector General review. Caleb Voss remained suspended pending investigation into contraband possession, evidence handling, and possible staff misconduct. Deputy Director Malcolm Reyes would continue acting command. The prison opened evening movement on schedule. 1,400 inmates went to chow. Officers changed shifts. Counts cleared. Blackridge kept functioning without its warden. And Marissa was beginning to learn that the badge she had spent 20 years earning was not the same thing as the authority to decide which rules could wait 10 more minutes. The first criminal charge came 48 hours later. Not against Marissa. Against Caleb Voss. The State Special Investigations Unit found his fingerprints on all 4 undocumented phones. That alone proved nothing unusual. He had handled the case. Then they pulled the device contents. One phone belonged to the girlfriend of an inmate serving 12 years for armed robbery. Another contained messages between a prepaid number and an outside account that investigators had already linked to synthetic drug deliveries. A third phone had been activated only 9 days earlier. The fourth was almost empty. Almost. Its payment application showed transfers totaling $14,600 over 7 months. Most were small. 300. 500. 750. Never enough to look dramatic by itself. The recipient accounts rotated. But the messages attached to several payments were worse. East Laundry. Tuesday. Move him after count. Need C-Wing again. N1. CV says done. At 7:15 Monday morning, Special Agent Taryn Lowe called me. I'm telling you this because one of the devices intersects your company. I sat down. How? Grayline Access Records. My stomach tightened. What did he use? Nothing compromised so far. Then what intersection? One message references an East Wing camera outage on March 8. I remembered March 8. Blackridge lost 6 cameras in East C for 34 minutes during a switch replacement. Planned maintenance. Approved. Escorted. Every minute documented. What does the message say? Taryn paused. Then read it. Grayline kills eyes 1010. Bring it then. I went cold. Who sent that? Unknown prepaid account to one of Voss's phones. Did Grayline kill anything illegally? No evidence of that. March 8 was scheduled maintenance. We know. Was the work order public inside the facility? Available to security leadership. Including Caleb. The implication was obvious. Someone had used legitimate maintenance windows to predict when surveillance coverage would be reduced. Did anything enter the prison? We're investigating. I looked toward my office door. Does Priya know? Yes. We contacted Grayline Compliance before you. Good. You need to stay out of the technical review. I will. I mean completely. I heard you. Taryn continued. There's another reason I called. What? Warden Cole approved the March 8 maintenance movement plan. Of course she did. The warden approved dozens of facility-impacting maintenance plans every month. That did not make her part of Caleb's scheme. I said, that's routine. We know. Then don't make it sound like more. I'm not. Taryn's tone remained level. We are examining whether Voss had advanced knowledge of restricted surveillance windows through his normal duties and then exploited them. That sounds more likely. Possibly. Anything tying Marissa to the phone traffic? Not yet. Not yet. I hated those words. Not because I wanted her cleared immediately. Because every unknown fact now sat between my wife and the person I thought I had married. At 9, Grayline suspended all non-essential maintenance at Blackridge until state investigators completed a review of information access. Not because our systems were compromised. Because even a perfectly legitimate maintenance schedule could become useful contraband intelligence if the wrong person knew exactly when cameras would be unavailable. Priya led the response. I stayed out. That was harder than I expected. Blackridge was one of our oldest state contracts. I knew its wiring maps better than some officers knew the housing units. I could have answered half the questions faster than anyone. I did not. Being useful was not the same thing as being appropriate. At 11:30, Marissa's attorney called me. His name was Aaron Phelps. We need to discuss marital communications potentially relevant to the investigation. No. A pause. I haven't told you which communications. You're her lawyer. Yes. I'm a witness. I understand. Then communicate through the Inspector General or my attorney. Another pause. You retained counsel? An hour after my wife locked me in a cell. That ended the conversation. My attorney, Daniel Frost, was not family law counsel. Not yet. He handled regulatory investigations and government contracts. He called Aaron back and established the boundary in language more polite than mine. At 1 o'clock, Taryn interviewed Marissa for the third time. I did not attend. I learned the important parts later. She admitted Caleb routinely received access to planned maintenance schedules because deputy wardens coordinated staffing around restricted movement. She admitted he sometimes asked unusually detailed questions about camera outages. She said she assumed he was doing his job. Then Taryn showed her 3 emails. The first was from Caleb in February. Any chance Grayline can move East Sea camera work from Friday to Tuesday? I need the unit quieter Tuesday. Marissa replied. Ask facilities. If security impact is equivalent, fine. Facilities approved the change. Ordinary on its face. The second email came 2 months earlier. Caleb asked whether a loading dock camera replacement could be scheduled during evening count rather than afternoon movement. Again, Marissa forwarded the request. Again, facilities approved. The third was more troubling. Caleb wrote. Need 15 minutes dark at South Service Corridor for confidential intel movement. Can Grayline accommodate during Thursday maintenance? Marissa replied. What movement? Caleb answered. Sensitive source. Better not in email. Her final response. Coordinate with Navarro. Captain Navarro later told investigators Caleb never coordinated with her. The camera outage still occurred as part of scheduled maintenance. Nothing in Marissa's email ordered an illegal blackout. Nothing showed she knew what Caleb intended. But the pattern gave him something valuable. A warden who trusted his security judgment enough to keep forwarding unusual scheduling requests instead of demanding documentation. At 3:40, Taryn called me again. We found the cash source. The $2,300? Yes. Contraband payments? Partly. Only $900 matched marked bills from a prior controlled investigation into an inmate extortion ring. The remaining cash could not yet be traced. The oxycodone was worse. The bottle lot numbers matched medication dispensed by Blackridge's contracted medical provider. Not to Caleb. To inmates. 14 tablets from one bottle had originally been prescribed across 3 separate patients. The other bottle contained pills from at least 2 pharmacy batches. That meant somebody had diverted medication after it entered the correctional medical system. Caleb was charged with possession of contraband inside a correctional facility, unlawful possession of a controlled substance, and evidence tampering. More charges were possible. Did Marissa know? We have no evidence she knew about the pills. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. Then Taryn added. But we found something involving her. My relief disappeared. What? An internal complaint from 5 months ago. Against Caleb? Yes. What kind? An officer reported that Voss was spending unusual amounts of time in the intelligence property room and removing seized electronics without standard checkout. I stood. Who received it? Marissa. For several seconds, I said nothing. What did she do? She referred it to the chief of security. Chief Baines? Yes. The retired Chief Caleb later blamed for the unlogged evidence practice. What happened? Baines closed the complaint after Voss provided an explanation that he was conducting sensitive intelligence review. Any audit? No. Any evidence inventory? No. Did Marissa approve the closure? Yes. That was the first fact that felt dangerous in a different way. Not because it proved corruption. Because it meant the warning had existed. 5 months ago. Before I found the case. Before she locked me up. Before Caleb claimed Chief Baines had authorized the entire arrangement. Did she know the relationship with Caleb had to be considered? She disclosed the affair 3 months before that complaint. So why was she involved in approving its closure? We're asking. I already knew the likely answer. Because the ethics restrictions moved Caleb's performance reviews and formal discipline to regional. They did not remove Marissa from every operational complaint involving him. The policy had a gap, and she had walked through it. At 5:15, Captain Navarro called me personally. "This is not an official call." "Then maybe don't make it. I need you to know something before rumors get there first." I stayed quiet. "The officer who made that complaint was me. That stopped me." "You reported Caleb?" "Yes." "Why?" "I saw him remove 2 phones from intelligence storage without signing the ledger." "The legitimate evidence phones?" "Probably." "Why didn't you go to regional?" "I went through chain of command." "Meaning Marissa." "What did she say?" "She said she'd handle it." "And?" A week later, Baines told me Caleb had authority for sensitive intel and the matter was closed. "Did you object?" "Yes." "To Marissa?" "Yes." "What did she say?" Navarro hesitated. "She said I was reading too much into it because I didn't trust Caleb." "That hurt." "Why didn't you trust him?" "He bypassed procedure." "That's not personal." "No." "Did she make it personal?" "She asked whether my issue with him came from being passed over for deputy warden." I closed my eyes. Captain Navarro had applied for Caleb's position 2 years earlier. Caleb got it. That did not invalidate what she saw. "Did Marissa threaten you?" "No." "Retaliate?" "No." "Change your assignment?" "No." "Then what happened?" I stopped pushing. There it was. Not corruption. Not direct protection of contraband. Something more ordinary and more dangerous. A credible employee raised a concern about the man Marissa was sleeping with. Marissa let his explanation win. Then framed the officer's persistence as possible resentment. The complaint died. 5 months later, I found the box. I asked, "Why tell me?" "Because you're going to hear people say she knew." "Did she?" "I don't know." "Then don't say she did." "I'm not." Navarro paused. "I think she trusted him enough that she made other people prove why they shouldn't." That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. At 7 o'clock, Marissa finally texted. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message. Then answered. "Phone only." She called immediately. "You heard about Navarro?" "Yes." "I handled that complaint badly." "Yes." "I didn't know about the contraband." "I believe you." She was silent. "Why does that sound worse every time you say it?" "Because not knowing isn't the whole issue anymore." "I know." "Why did you close Navarro's complaint?" "I didn't close it. Baines did." "You approved it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Caleb had an intelligence explanation." "Did you verify it?" "No." "Did anyone inventory what he removed?" "No." "Then?" She began crying. "I trusted him." There it was again. Operational trust. Personal trust. Blended until neither of us could tell where one ended. "You trusted him more than Navarro?" "Yes." "Why?" "I thought she resented him." "Did you have evidence?" "No." "Did Caleb suggest that?" Silence. "Marissa." "Yes." My jaw tightened. "What did he say?" "That Elise never got over losing the deputy job." "And you believed him?" "Yes." The affair had given Caleb more than access to her bed. It had given him influence over whose motives she questioned. I said, "That complaint was your warning." "I know." "No. The freezer was your second warning." Her breathing broke. "Yes." "Navarro told you he was bypassing evidence procedure. You decided she might be biased." "I found the contraband." "You decided I might compromise the investigation." "I know." "2 people brought you problems involving Caleb." "Yes." "And both times you looked for a reason the reporter might be the problem." She stopped crying. That silence felt different. Not shame. Recognition. Finally she said, "I did." There was no defense left inside it. At 8:30 that night, the Inspector General expanded its investigation. Not because Marissa had been tied to Caleb's contraband. She had not. Because investigators now had to determine whether her relationship with him caused legitimate warnings to be discounted before the discovery. Her badge was already gone. Now the question was no longer only whether she had wrongfully locked me in a cell. It was whether 5 months earlier, she had already made the same mistake in a quieter form. Trusted Caleb first. Questioned the person raising the alarm second. And let the difference between those 2 choices become part of how contraband stayed hidden inside Blackridge. The Inspector General found the missing piece on Wednesday morning. It did not clear Marissa. It made what she had done harder to reduce to one affair. Taryn Lowe called me at 9:12. We reviewed Voss's personnel history. What did you find? Do you remember the West Annex hostage incident? Of course I did. Everyone in the state corrections system remembered it. 3 years earlier, before Caleb became deputy warden, an inmate in Blackridge's protective custody wing took a case manager hostage with a sharpened piece of steel. The incident lasted 73 minutes. No shots. No death. The case manager walked out alive. Caleb had been the captain who negotiated the surrender from behind a security door while the tactical team staged down the hall. He received a departmental valor citation. Marissa recommended him for promotion 6 months later. What about it? I asked. We reconstructed what happened afterward. I waited. Voss became the person Warden Cole relied on for sensitive intelligence operations. That did not surprise me. He was good at it, Taryn continued. At least for a while. How good? Very. Over the next 2 years, Caleb helped identify a staff member bringing tobacco into Blackridge. He uncovered an inmate extortion ring operating through prepaid debit accounts. He developed an informant whose information prevented an assault on a corrections officer. He caught a contract kitchen employee smuggling charging cables inside produce boxes. Every case was documented. Every result legitimate. And in several of them, Caleb had bent ordinary process without actually violating policy. He kept intelligence sources compartmentalized. Delayed some entries in shared investigative systems to protect informants. Moved seized electronics into restricted intelligence storage before formal evidence processing when immediate extraction mattered. Not ideal for routine work. Sometimes justified under emergency intelligence procedures. Chief Baines had backed him. So had Marissa. Taryn said, by the time the affair started, Voss already had 2 years of credibility with her. That mattered. Not as an excuse. As sequence. I had assumed their intimacy created the trust. The investigation was showing the trust came first. The intimacy made it harder to question later. What went wrong? I asked. We don't know exactly when. Contraband payments? Earliest suspicious transaction we've identified is 9 months ago. 3 months before the affair began. I sat down. So Caleb may have already been corrupt before he slept with Marissa. Yes. Did she know? No evidence. Did anyone? Possibly not. That changed the picture. Caleb had not appeared one morning as Marissa's lover and immediately started using her protection. He had spent years becoming the officer people trusted to work around sensitive rules because he kept producing results. Then, at some point, the exceptions stopped serving investigations and started serving him. The difficult question was when anyone around him should have noticed. Taryn said, "There's more." Of course there was. Chief Baines. What about him? He confirmed the sensitive intelligence practice Voss described. The unlogged phones? Not those specific 4. What did he confirm? That during several active investigations, Baines allowed Caleb to keep seized electronic devices temporarily outside the main evidence cage while intelligence teams attempted to identify contacts. There was supposed to be a separate restricted log. That log was incomplete. Not missing. Incomplete. Some entries existed. Some did not. The procedure had developed informally because Blackridge's central evidence process was slow and intelligence staff complained that waiting 24 hours for device access sometimes destroyed leads. Was that allowed? I asked. Not the way they were doing it. Did Marissa know? She knew intelligence held some devices separately. Did she approve? She approved a pilot process 18 months ago. I closed my eyes. There it was. How much did the pilot allow? Temporary secure intelligence storage. Dual custody. Same-day entry. Unique tracking number. Mandatory transfer to formal evidence by end of shift unless regional investigations approved extension. Reasonable. Yes. What did Caleb do? Over time, dual custody became inconsistent. Same-day entry slipped. Baines tolerated extensions without regional approval. And Marissa? Received quarterly intelligence reports showing the pilot as functioning. Were the reports false? Not obviously. Did they disclose the deviations? No. Who prepared them? Voss. That was cleaner. He had helped design the system that eventually gave him cover. But Taryn was not finished. Warden Cole praised the program twice in command evaluations. Because it produced results. Yes. And did it? For a while. That was the part nobody wanted. Bad systems rarely began by failing. Sometimes they began by working so well that nobody wanted to ask why. At noon, Marissa was interviewed again. This time, her attorney insisted on recording separately. The Inspector General allowed it. The written summary reached me through Daniel Frost later that afternoon because several questions involved gray line maintenance schedules. Marissa confirmed the intelligence pilot had been her initiative. After the West Annex incident, she wanted Blackridge to become less reactive, less dependent on finding contraband after it had already reached housing units. Caleb proposed faster device exploitation and smaller intelligence teams. He delivered results. Marissa gave him room. Then more room. When Chief Baines said traditional evidence processing was slowing intelligence work, Marissa approved the pilot. When Caleb asked to keep sensitive source identities out of broad access databases, she supported him. When other officers complained he was secretive, she defended the compartmentalization. For 2 years, that defense was often justified. Then the questions changed. Taryn asked, "When did you first become concerned that Deputy Warden Voss used sensitive intelligence to avoid scrutiny rather than protect investigations?" Marissa answered, "The night Ethan found the case. That was devastatingly late." Taryn asked, "Not when Captain Navarro complained 5 months earlier?" Marissa, "No. I believed Voss's explanation." "Why?" "Because it matched practices I had authorized in legitimate cases." There it was. A legitimate history had provided camouflage for illegitimate conduct. Then Taryn asked, "Did your romantic relationship affect your evaluation of Captain Navarro's complaint?" Marissa's answer took nearly a minute. Finally, "Yes. Not because she thought Caleb incapable of wrongdoing. Because by then she was already personally invested in believing she understood him better than others did. She knew his intelligence methods. His stress. His complaints about Navarro. His version of events. He did not have to pressure her explicitly. She had accumulated enough reasons to doubt the person challenging him." The report quoted her. "I thought Elise saw a rule-breaking where Caleb saw intelligence work. I had seen his method succeed before, and because I was close to him, I believed I understood the difference. I did not. That was the midpoint. The affair had not created a competent officer out of a corrupt one. Caleb had earned trust honestly first. Then abused the flexibility that trust bought. Marissa's failure was not simply loving the wrong man. It was failing to notice when old evidence of competence stopped being proof of current integrity. And once the affair began, she became even less capable of updating her view. At 4 o'clock, Taryn called again. "I want to make something clear." "Go ahead." "We have not found evidence Warden Cole knowingly assisted Voss's contraband scheme." "I understand. No money to her." "Good." "No messages indicating she knew about the unauthorized phones." "Good." "No evidence she knew inmate medication was being diverted." "Good." "No evidence she ordered camera outages for smuggling." I let out a breath. Then Taryn continued. "But we have enough to sustain a separate administrative finding." "What kind?" "Failure to manage conflict of interest and failure to properly escalate security concerns involving a conflicted subordinate." That sounded serious. "How serious?" "That's a disciplinary question for the department." "And the detention?" "Separate finding." "Unauthorized?" "Likely." "Likely?" "Final report isn't issued." I appreciated the precision, even when I hated it. "What about Caleb?" "Criminal investigation continues." "Anyone else involved?" "Yes." "That was new." "Who?" "2 corrections officers and 1 contracted medical technician are under investigation." The oxycodone had not walked itself into Caleb's case. The phones had not appeared from nowhere. Caleb had been part of a network. Possibly the center of it. Possibly not. I asked, did Marissa supervise any of them directly? Ultimately, she was warden. That isn't what I asked. Not day to day. Good. Another line that needed to stay clear. At 5:30, Malcolm Reyes held a command briefing at Blackridge. Grayline received the operational summary because several security procedures changed. The intelligence device pilot was terminated immediately. All seized electronics went through formal evidence intake before extraction. Emergency exceptions required regional approval. 2-person custody. No undocumented storage. No deferred logging. The policy that began as an attempt to make intelligence faster was gone. Not because every result it produced had been wrong. Because the flexibility had become too easy to convert into concealment. Priya read the summary beside me. Greyline camera maintenance changes too. How? No detailed outage windows to individual facility commanders more than 12 hours in advance unless operationally necessary. That will annoy everybody. Yes. Good. She smiled. You're becoming unpleasant. I'm learning from corrections. At 6, Marissa texted. Taryn told my lawyer they found no evidence I knew about the trafficking. I read it. Then another message. I wanted you to hear that from me, not because I think it fixes anything. That distinction was worth respecting. I answered. I heard. I'm glad. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then. Can I call? I agreed. Her voice sounded different than it had days earlier. Less defensive. More tired. They found the pilot program. Yes. I built it. You approved it. I pushed for it. Because it worked. For a while. There was no pride left in the sentence. Marissa continued. Do you know why I trusted Caleb after West Annex? He got the hostage out. That was part of it. What else? He disagreed with me before it happened. I waited. We had intelligence that the inmate was escalating. Caleb wanted him moved to restrictive housing. I thought the evidence was thin. And? I overruled him. The hostage incident happened 2 days later. That was the origin. Caleb had been right when Marissa was wrong. Then he negotiated the surrender. 2 powerful pieces of evidence arriving together. He never used it against me, she said. That probably made it worse. What? You trusted him more because he didn't. Marissa was silent. Yes. After that, when Caleb warned about something, she listened. When he said procedure was slowing intelligence, she gave him room. When other staff questioned his methods, she remembered the time she had doubted him and almost paid for it. A single painful mistake had trained her to overcorrect for years. I said, you were afraid of being wrong about him again. Yes. And then Navarro complained. Yes. And instead of asking whether Caleb had changed, you asked whether Navarro was biased. Yes. Then I found the box. She started crying. And I did it again. Exactly. She did not lock me in a cell because she knew Caleb was guilty and wanted to hide it. In some ways, the truth was more frustrating. She still believed there might be an innocent explanation. And because she believed that, she treated the person forcing immediate escalation as the disruption. First Navarro. Then me. I asked, if I had handed you my phone, what were you going to do? Check whether you photographed inmate information. And then? Release you. How long? I don't know. 5 minutes? Probably. 10. A pause. Yes. I almost laughed. There it was again. 10 minutes. Enough time to verify Caleb. Enough time to delay IG. Enough time to contain the contractor. Enough time to decide whether the first answer really had to stand. Marissa said, I thought if I could just slow everything down, I could keep a mistake from becoming irreversible. And instead? I used authority I didn't have. Yes. Against you. Yes. She went quiet. Then she said, I keep wanting to tell you I wasn't protecting an affair. I know. But that sounds like I'm asking you to feel better. It wouldn't. I know. That was progress. Not enough for us. Enough for truth. At 7:20, the department notified Marissa that her administrative leave would continue through final review. Her badge would not be restored in the interim. Her warden authority remained suspended. The final report would decide whether she returned to Blackridge, returned somewhere else under discipline, or lost command entirely. Caleb's criminal case had grown. Marissa's had narrowed. She was no longer under suspicion of participating in his trafficking. But the thing that remained was hers alone. She had built a system around a man whose judgment once saved her. She kept trusting that old version of him after the evidence started changing. And when 2 different people tried to force her to see the difference, she used her authority to make them wait. Captain Navarro lost 5 months. I lost 8 minutes. Marissa might lose the badge. Not because she loved Caleb. Because when trust and evidence finally pointed in opposite directions, she chose trust twice. The Inspector General issued its final administrative report 11 days later. 112 pages. Daniel Frost told me to read only the sections involving Greyline and my detention. I ignored him and read almost all of it. Caleb Voss's criminal investigation was still separate, but the administrative facts were clear enough. 4 undocumented phones. Controlled medication diverted from inmate prescriptions. Cash linked partly to an active extortion investigation. Improper use of the intelligence property process. Maintenance windows exploited to create predictable gaps in surveillance. 2 corrections officers and a contract medical technician now suspended alongside him. The report did not claim Marissa knew about any of that. In fact, it said the opposite. Investigators found no evidence Warden Marissa Cole knowingly participated in, profited from, or facilitated Deputy Warden Voss's contraband activity. I stopped there for a moment. Months earlier, I might have thought that sentence could save us. Now it simply established the right boundary. She had not been corrupt. What followed was still serious. The report sustained 3 administrative findings against her. First, failure to properly manage a conflict involving Caleb after their disclosed relationship. Not because the department expected her never to speak to him. Because when Captain Navarro raised an evidence-handling concern, Marissa participated in evaluating Caleb's explanation even though she already had a personal conflict. She should have sent the complaint directly to regional oversight. She didn't. Second, failure to escalate suspected contraband immediately on the night I found the case. Once unlogged phones, cash, and controlled medication appeared together, facility policy required immediate Inspector General notification. Marissa knew that. She delayed. Not for hours. For minutes. The report said the duration did not change the violation. Third, unauthorized confinement of a civilian contractor. Me. That section was the shortest. It was also the hardest to read. Marissa had authority to restrict movement inside Blackridge. She could escort a contractor from a secure area. Suspend credentials. Direct someone to remain in an administrative office while an access issue was reviewed. Request law enforcement if she believed a crime had occurred. What she did not have was authority to use a secure custody room as an investigative convenience when there was no arrest, no threat, and no immediate security necessity. The report quoted her order. Secure interview 3. Then Captain Navarro's objection. Then Marissa's response. I need him contained until I know what left the room. Contained. Again. The report concluded. Warden Cole used custodial authority against the reporting party in circumstances where less restrictive, policy-compliant alternatives were immediately available. Her personal relationship with the subject of the underlying contraband concern created an appearance and actual risk of retaliatory decision-making, regardless of whether retaliation was her conscious intent. That was precise. They did not accuse her of locking me up as part of a criminal cover-up. They did not need to. She used the wrong authority against the wrong person at exactly the moment her judgment was compromised. At 10:30 that morning, the Department of Corrections disciplinary panel met. I was not invited. Good. By noon, rumors had already reached Grayline. Priya came into my office. People are saying she's fired. People say lots of things. Do you know? No. Want to? Yes. That was the truth. Whatever our marriage had become, I did not want to find out about Marissa's career through somebody's group chat. At 12:47, she called. I answered. They made the decision. I stood and closed my office door. What is it? I'm not going back to Blackridge. Her voice remained steady. For now. Terminated? No. I let out a slow breath. What then? Removed as warden. Permanently. Not suspended. Not 30 days. Blackridge was no longer hers. What are they offering? A demotion to Deputy Regional Compliance Administrator. I almost thought I misheard. Compliance? She gave one dry laugh. I appreciate the irony. What does the job do? Facility audits. Incident command review. Evidence control compliance. Conflict management training. That sounded deliberate. Badge? Different credentials. No facility command badge. So you stay in corrections. If I accept. Pay cut? About 22%. Pension? Unaffected. Supervisory authority? Administrative staff. No wardens report to me. And discipline? Final written finding. 2-year promotion restriction. Ethics and command retraining before I start. Serious. Not career destruction. The department believed she had failed badly enough to lose command, not badly enough to erase 20 years of service. What happens if you refuse? My employment ends. I sat down. What are you going to do? I accepted. I was surprised by how quickly she said it. No appeal? I waived the appeal. Why? Because the findings are right. I stayed quiet. Marissa continued. My attorney thinks we could challenge the unauthorized confinement finding. On what basis? That interview 3 is also classified as a secure interview room, not only a holding cell. I almost laughed. He seriously wants to argue vocabulary? He thinks the department overstated the custodial nature. Were you able to open the door from outside? Yes. Was I? No. Then I don't care what the blueprint calls it. I told him the same thing. That surprised me. He also thinks we could argue the conflict policy was ambiguous around Navarro's complaint. It was incomplete. Yes. But you knew enough to recuse. I should have. Another answer without a fight. I asked, so why waive everything? Because if I spend 6 months arguing that the room wasn't technically a cell and the conflict rule wasn't technically specific enough, I will learn exactly the wrong lesson. That was probably the strongest thing she had done since this began. Marissa's voice softened. I spent years teaching officers that authority has to survive scrutiny after the emergency ends. Yes. I don't get a special version because the scrutiny is about me. No. She did not. I asked when the new assignment began. 3 weeks. Where? Regional office in Madison. That's 2 hours away. I know. Are you moving? Yes. That landed differently. Until then, Marissa had been staying in a furnished apartment near Blackridge while I remained at the house. Neither of us called it permanent. A regional assignment made the distance real. Have you found a place? Not yet. I looked at the framed photograph on my desk. Marissa and me at our daughter's high school graduation. 4 years ago. Before Caleb. Before Contraband. Before interview 3. Do you need anything from the house? Eventually. Okay. She was quiet. Then, Ethan, are we going to talk about us? Not today. A few months earlier, she would have pushed. Asked when. Asked what I needed. Asked whether accepting the discipline changed anything. Instead she said, okay. And stopped. That mattered. It did not fix the marriage. But it mattered. That afternoon, the Department of Corrections announced the decision internally. Marissa Cole would not return as warden of Blackridge Correctional Center. Malcolm Reyes remained acting administrator until a permanent replacement was selected. The notice described Marissa's reassignment as disciplinary. No euphemism about pursuing new opportunities. No claim she voluntarily wanted a compliance role. The department also announced changes that went beyond her. Any disclosed romantic relationship between command staff and another facility employee now triggered automatic outside review of complaints involving either person. Intelligence evidence pilots required regional approval. Secure interview rooms could not be used to hold civilians absent defined statutory or emergency authority. Captain Navarro was promoted to interim deputy warden. That one made me smile. Not because Caleb had fallen. Because she had been right months before anybody listened. At 5, Priya brought me Grayline's final contract findings. We're clean. I read the summary. All camera outages Caleb exploited had been legitimate maintenance. No Grayline employee took money. No technician intentionally created an unauthorized surveillance gap. No system logs had been falsified. The state still wanted changes. Outage windows would be disclosed closer to execution. Sensitive maintenance schedules would go to fewer facility staff. Unexpected delays would trigger revised notice times. Reasonable. Contract at risk? I asked. No. Good. Priya leaned against the desk. So this part is over. For us. Not for Caleb. No. His criminal case was becoming worse. The medical technician had started cooperating. Investigators believed medication was being diverted through fake refusal records. An inmate would supposedly decline a dose, but the medication would disappear rather than return to inventory. One suspended officer admitted he had moved packages through staff-only corridors during camera maintenance periods. He claimed Caleb gave the instructions. Caleb's attorney denied everything. That process would take months. Maybe longer. I did not need to follow every charge. I had already learned the part that mattered to me. Caleb had chosen corruption. Marissa had not. She had chosen to keep believing him after the evidence justified less trust. Those were not the same failure. They did not need the same consequence. At 6:30, Captain Navarro called. This time, officially. I wanted to tell you Regional cleared Greyline to resume full maintenance. Priya told me. Then unofficially, thank you. For what? Making the call. I frowned. You made one first. She laughed softly. Fair. You got me out. I made a report. That's what got me out. A pause. Then she said, Marissa called me today. That surprised me. Why? To apologize. I did not ask what she said. Navarro told me anyway. She said she made my credibility compete against Caleb's history when the evidence should have stood on its own. That sounded like Marissa. The current version, at least. Did you accept? I told her I appreciated it. Not forgiveness. Not rejection. Enough. After we hung up, I sat alone in my office until almost 7. Outside, Greyline technicians were finishing for the day. Normal work. Normal lights. No locked doors. My phone buzzed. A message from Marissa. I found an apartment near the regional office. I'll come for my things Saturday if that works. I stared at it. Then answered. Saturday works. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No extra message. No attempt to convert logistics into intimacy. On Saturday, she arrived at 10. She packed uniforms first. Most of them would never be worn again. The dark Warden shirts. The command jacket. The formal coat with the badge mount over the chest. She folded them anyway. At one point, I stood in the bedroom doorway while she held the empty badge wallet. The department had returned the leather case. Not the badge. She ran her thumb across the indentation where it had been. 20 years, she said. You still have the career. I know. Does that help? Some. She put the empty case in a box. Then looked at me. I think losing Blackridge is fair. I believed her. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I know. She nodded. For a second, we were husband and wife again. Not investigator and witness. Not warden and contractor. Just two people who knew exactly how much a lost career milestone could hurt the other. Then Marissa closed the box. I'll get the rest next week. Okay. At the front door, she stopped. Ethan. Yes? I'm not going to ask whether accepting the discipline changes us. I looked at her. Why tell me? Because I want to ask. That honesty hurt. But wanting an answer doesn't mean I'm entitled to make you give one before you're ready. Then she left. The state had taken her command badge in one night. The final report made sure she would never wear it at Blackridge again. But the department gave her a way to keep serving without the authority she had misused. I thought that was fair. Our marriage had no disciplinary panel. No reassignment. No 2-year restriction followed by eligibility for promotion. Marissa could earn professional trust back one audit at a time. I still did not know whether there was any position left for her in my life. Marissa started her new job on a Monday. No command staff lined up outside a secure entrance. No morning count briefing. No radio clipped to her shoulder. No warden's badge. At 8:03 a.m., she walked into the Department of Corrections regional office carrying a laptop bag and an employee credential that identified her as Deputy Regional Compliance Administrator. I knew because she sent me a photograph of the badge. No message attached. I looked at it for a few seconds. Then replied. Good luck today. She answered. Thank you. That was all. We had become very good at stopping before ordinary conversation turned into something neither of us knew how to finish. Her first assignment was not Blackridge. That would have been inappropriate. Instead, she joined a team reviewing evidence control practices at 3 smaller facilities after the department discovered how easily Blackridge's intelligence pilot had drifted away from its original safeguards. The irony was obvious. Marissa had spent years making exceptions. Now she audited them. Her supervisor, Regional Compliance Director Helena Price, had been with the department almost as long as Marissa. They had never been close. That was probably useful. Helena gave Marissa no special introduction. No speech about second chances. According to Marissa, she pointed toward a stack of files and said, Your history means you know where people hide the real decision. Find it. That sounded like a compliance officer. 2 weeks into the job, Marissa called me on a Sunday afternoon. I almost did not answer. Then I saw she had not called once since moving. Hey. Are you busy? No. I need to tell you something before it reaches the press. That got my attention. Caleb? Yes. I sat down. What happened? He took a plea. I had expected the case to last months. Already? The medical technician gave them everything. Marissa sounded tired, but not shocked. Caleb agreed to plead guilty to introducing contraband into a correctional facility, unlawful possession and distribution of controlled substances, and conspiracy related to inmate communications. The state dropped several secondary counts. He also agreed to cooperate against the 2 officers and an outside contact who arranged payments from inmates' families. How much time? I asked. Sentencing hasn't happened. Expected? His lawyer is asking for 5. State? 8. Prison. For a former deputy warden. The word did not need saying. I asked, did the plea say when it started? Yes. The earliest proven contraband transaction occurred 10 months before I found the case. 3 months before Marissa and Caleb's affair began. That confirmed what the Inspector General already suspected. He had been dirty before he slept with her. Marissa said, there's a factual statement attached. What does it say? For years, Caleb had developed legitimate informants and intelligence contacts. Then one inmate's family offered money for a phone. He refused the first time. Accepted later. After that, the system grew. 1 phone. Then another. Cash. Medication. Movement information. Camera maintenance windows. He used intelligence practices that had once been legitimate because he already knew how to make irregular handling look operationally necessary. He also admitted something else. When Navarro complained, Marissa said, he knew exactly what he was doing. I waited. He told me she was bitter about losing the deputy job because he wanted me to discount her. There it was. Not speculation anymore. Intent. He used your relationship. Yes. Did he say that? Not in those words. What words? Marissa took a breath. He admitted he knew I trusted his read on staff motives and that our relationship made me more likely to accept his explanation privately. I felt anger arrive late. Months late. Not because this suddenly made Marissa innocent. Because Caleb had understood the weakness in the system better than either of us did. He knew you were conflicted. Yes. And fed the conflict. Yes. Did he say anything about me? Another pause. Yes. My jaw tightened. What? The night you found the case, he told investigators he was afraid you would call IG before he could move the phones. I did call. After I detained you. I stayed quiet. He said when he suggested checking your phone, he expected me to slow you down. That was the first time my detention became part of Caleb's admitted strategy. Not because he ordered it. He didn't. But he understood Marissa well enough to know what pressure point to touch. Protect restricted information. Question the contractor's phone. By time. I asked, did he expect you to put me in a cell? No. That mattered. What did he expect? That I'd take your phone and keep you in an office while he explained the evidence story. And you went further. Yes. Her voice did not shake. That mattered too. She was not using Caleb's confession to reduce her share. I need you to hear the next part, she said. Go ahead. He admitted manipulating me. I heard. But I still made the detention decision. Yes. I don't want this plea agreement to become my excuse. It shouldn't. I know. I leaned back. Months earlier, learning Caleb had intentionally exploited her trust might have changed everything. Now it changed the understanding. Not the outcome. He had pushed. She had chosen. Both could be true. Marissa said, his attorney asked whether I would write a sentencing letter. I almost laughed. He asked you? Through counsel. What did you say? No. Immediate. Why? Because anything I write becomes about us. That may be unavoidable. He had a career before me. He committed crimes before the affair. He manipulated me afterward. The court has his record. So you're staying out? Yes. Good. She was quiet. Then. How are you? The question caught me off guard. Fine. That sounded convincing. I'm working. Grayline? Busy. Blackridge contract? Stable. The state had renewed Grayline's maintenance agreement for another year. No special favor. No punishment. The technical review cleared us. Priya now handled every Blackridge interaction. I had not entered the prison since the night I called the Inspector General. Marissa asked, do you ever think about interview 3? Yes. How often? Less. That was true. The cell itself had not traumatized me in the dramatic sense. 8 minutes. No violence. No threat from inmates. No physical injury. What stayed was the image of Marissa outside the window deciding I was the variable she could contain. She asked, "Do you hate me?" No. That answer was easy. Are you still angry? Yes. Do you still love me? I closed my eyes. Yes. Silence. Then she said, "Can I ask one more thing?" I knew what was coming. Ask. Is there a path back? That was her one attempt. Clear. No speech. No bargaining. I took a long time before answering. I don't think so. Her breathing caught. But she did not interrupt. I continued. I understand more now than I did that night. I know. I understand why you trusted Caleb. Yes. I understand he earned some of that trust honestly before he abused it. Yes. I understand the affair made it harder for you to see when he changed. Yes. And I understand he deliberately used that. Her voice was quiet. Yes. None of that changes what happened when I said call IG. No. You knew the policy. Yes. Navarro objected. Yes. Ramon told you the reporting requirement. Yes. And you still decided the person who had to wait was me. She started crying. I know. That is the part one can't rebuild around. I understand. I believe you would never do it again. She went silent. That was probably the cruelest truth. Because change was not the issue anymore. I believe you learned from it, I said. Then why isn't that enough? Because trust isn't only believing someone will behave better after they hurt you. She did not answer. It's also whether you still want to place yourself back inside the relationship that made the first decision possible. Her crying softened. And you don't. No. There it was. Not legal yet. But final enough. Marissa whispered, okay. No second argument. No promise that she would prove herself. No question about how long I needed. Just okay. We ended the call 10 minutes later. The next morning, I called a family law attorney. Her name was Julia Wren. I had delayed that call because I kept telling myself I was waiting for the Inspector General. Then for Marissa's discipline. Then for Caleb's criminal case. There was always another official answer coming. But none of those institutions were responsible for deciding whether my marriage continued. Julia asked how long we had been separated. About 2 months physically. Longer emotionally. Children? 1 daughter. 21. Property? House, retirement, investments. No major dispute expected. Business ownership? My company. Separate. Your wife's pension? Hers. Any jointly owned real estate besides the house? No. Then she asked, are you hoping for reconciliation? No. That answer hurt more when spoken to a stranger. But it remained no. Marissa received the draft separation and divorce proposal 4 days later. She called once. I answered. I got it. Okay. You meant what you said. Yes. I knew you did. She exhaled. I'm not contesting. I didn't expect you to. The house? I'd like to keep it. So would I. That was the first actual disagreement. For a second, both of us almost laughed. Then Marissa said, you should. Why? You stayed there. That doesn't decide property. No. But I don't want to fight for a house I left. We'll value it properly. Fine. No grand sacrifice. No punishment disguised as generosity. We would do it correctly. Before hanging up, Marissa said, I passed my first compliance audit review today. That's good. Helena said I missed one thing. What? A superintendent approved an evidence storage exception verbally. That sounds familiar. Very. What did you do? Sent it back. For documentation? For rejection. I smiled despite myself. Why? Because there was already a compliant alternative. And the superintendent? Called me bureaucratic. How did that feel? Marissa was quiet for a second. Better than being called Warden. That answer told me more about her recovery than another apology could. She was learning to hold a boundary even when the powerful person on the other side disliked it. Professionally, she might become better because of what happened. Personally, that lesson had arrived too late for us. 3 weeks later, Caleb Voss stood in state court and entered his guilty plea. I did not attend. Neither did Marissa. The news showed a short clip of him being led from the courthouse in restraints after the judge revoked his pre-sentencing release. I watched for less than a minute. Then turned it off. His consequences no longer needed me as an audience. That evening, Julia emailed the first complete divorce settlement draft. Property numbers. Pension waivers. House appraisal procedure. No drama. At the bottom was a place for my signature. I looked at it for a long time. Then signed. One call had taken Marissa's badge months earlier. It took far longer for me to admit that the same night had taken something no department could ever return. The house appraisal came in on a Monday morning. By lunch, Marissa and I had agreed on the number. That should not have surprised me. After everything else, neither of us wanted to spend 3 weeks arguing over granite countertops and a backyard fence. I would keep the house. She would receive her share of the marital equity through other assets and a cash equalization payment. Her state pension remained hers. Grayline remained mine. Our retirement accounts were divided according to contributions accumulated during the marriage. No one tried to turn punishment into property law. Julia Wren approved the settlement. Marissa's attorney approved it the following day. By Friday, the only thing still missing was a court date. I had expected relief. Instead, I spent that weekend fixing a loose cabinet hinge in a kitchen that suddenly felt too large. For 12 years, Marissa's coffee mug had sat on the second shelf beside mine. She had taken it months earlier. I still reached for it twice. That was divorce in practice. Not declarations. Muscle memory finding empty spaces. At 8:15 Monday morning, Priya called from Blackridge. "We have a problem." My stomach tightened automatically. What kind? Not our system. That helped. A security captain requested an emergency camera outage for West Unit plumbing access. Why? Inmate broke a fixture behind a wall. Maintenance needs the corridor isolated. Sounds normal. It is. Then? The facility wants the exact blind period extended by 15 minutes beyond the maintenance work so tactical staff can move an informant. I sat back. Who requested the extension? Acting Warden's office. Blackridge had finally appointed a permanent replacement for Marissa 2 weeks earlier. Warden Terrence Hale. Experienced. No connection to us. Did they document the intel movement? No. Then Grayline doesn't extend. I already told them. Good. They're pushing. Who? The new deputy. Send it to regional. I did. I smiled. You didn't need me. No. So why call? Priya hesitated. Because regional compliance assigned the review to Marissa. That was unexpected. Conflict? Blackridge is outside her normal rotation, but Helena Price assigned her because the request overlaps the policy changes from the Voss case. I stared at the wall. Does Marissa know Grayline is involved? Yes. Did she recuse? From any evaluation of our technical work. Good. But she is reviewing whether the prison can request an undocumented extension. Also good. What do you need from me? Nothing. Then why are we still talking? Priya laughed. I thought you'd want to know. I did. I just did not know why. At 10:40, regional issued its answer. Denied. The maintenance outage could last only as long as technicians required. Any intelligence movement during reduced camera coverage required separate regional authorization and a written risk plan. No extension. No verbal exception. No, we'll document later. Marissa's name appeared at the bottom of the compliance ruling. Reviewed by Marissa Cole. No badge. No command title. Still authority. Different kind. I read the decision once. Then closed it. That afternoon, she called. I heard Priya told you. She did. I didn't ask her to. I know. I almost recused from the whole thing. Why didn't you? Helena told me discomfort is not the same as conflict. That sounded like Helena. Marissa continued. I wasn't reviewing Grayline. I was reviewing the prison's request. And? They had a compliant option. So you denied it? Yes. How did Hale take it? He called Helena. I laughed. What happened? She told him the denial stood. Welcome to compliance. I hate this job. That surprised me. You said you liked it. I said I was learning. Different. Very. She sounded lighter than she had in weeks. Then she said, I'm good at it. That sounds healthier. I think so. For a moment, the conversation became dangerously normal. I could picture her at the regional office. reading incident reports, arguing about evidence logs, drinking terrible machine coffee. I could picture going home to her afterward. That was the problem. Love did not disappear on schedule just because trust did. Marissa asked, "Court date yet?" Julia says next month. Mine said the same. Silence. Then she said, "I'm going to sign the waiver of appearance." I frowned. "You don't want to attend? I don't think I should make you stand beside me to end something I already broke." That sounds dramatic. Probably. You have the right to be there. I know. Then decide based on what you want, not what you think I need. She went quiet. Okay. That word again. But this time she did not surrender immediately. The next day, she called back. "I'm coming." Good. I don't know why that feels harder. Because avoiding things sometimes looks like respect when it's really fear. She laughed softly. "You've been talking to compliance people too much." Occupational contamination. The hearing was set for November 12 at 9:30 a.m. By then, Caleb had been sentenced. 7 years. He received credit for cooperation but lost his corrections pension enhancement tied to his Deputy Warden service after the department completed its forfeiture action. 2 suspended officers took plea agreements. The medical technician received probation and a shorter custodial term under a cooperation deal. I learned the details from the news. Marissa never brought Caleb up again. Not because his role no longer mattered. Because his consequences were no longer part of hers. That separation was healthy. The morning of the hearing, I arrived 10 minutes early. Marissa was already there. She wore a charcoal suit. No uniform. No corrections insignia. For the first time since I had known her professionally, she looked like someone who worked for the state rather than represented it. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Her attorney stood nearby. Julia arrived a minute later. The 4 of us reviewed the final settlement one last time. House. Accounts. Pension waivers. Separate property. No unresolved claims. Then the clerk called our case. We stood before the judge. The questions were ordinary. Did we understand the agreement? Yes. Was either party under pressure? No. Had financial disclosures been complete? Yes. Was the marriage irretrievably broken? Marissa looked straight ahead. Yes. I said the same. The judge signed. 9:47 a.m. 12 years ended in 17 minutes. Outside the courtroom, our attorneys moved away to give us privacy. Marissa looked at the certified decree in her hand. I thought this would feel different. How? Louder. Most endings aren't. She nodded. Then reached into her bag. I have something. She handed me a small black box. Inside was my old Gray Line contractor credential from Blackridge. The one I had surrendered after the investigation began because I no longer personally worked that contract. You had this? It was in a sealed property envelope at Regional. They cleared it for return last week. I looked at the badge. My photograph. Contractor number. Blackridge access authorization. Something I had used for years without thinking about it. I don't need it. I know. Why bring it? Because I thought you should decide what happens to it. I turned the plastic card over. What did you do with your Warden badge? Marissa looked away. The department kept it. Right. The empty wallet is in a drawer. That felt appropriate. Neither of us got to keep pretending those credentials still meant what they once did. I closed the box. I'll destroy it through Grayline. She nodded. Then said, Ethan, I need to tell you one thing. I waited. Helena offered me a path back to facility command after my 2-year restriction ends. That caught me. What kind of path? Not a promise. Eligibility. For Warden? Eventually. I studied her. Do you want it? A long pause. I don't know. That was probably the first time in 20 years she had not immediately wanted the next badge. What does Helena think? She told me if I spend 2 years trying to prove I deserve command again, I'm missing the point. She sounds exhausting. She is. I smiled. Marissa continued. She said if I ever go back, it should be because I can do the job without needing the title to tell me who I am. That sounds right. I think so. Then her eyes filled. I used to think you understood that part of me better than anyone. I did. You still do. Yes. That was what made the divorce hard. We still understood each other. Understanding was not the missing piece. Marissa wiped one tear away. I'm not going to ask you again. I know. If there had been no cell. Don't. She stopped. Not because I was angry. Because alternate histories were another form of reopening. She nodded. Right. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, do you still think the call was worth it? The question surprised me. To IG? Yes. Yes. No hesitation. No. She swallowed. Even knowing what it cost me? Your badge? Yes. And us. I took my time. The call didn't cost us. Her face tightened. You had already made the decision that mattered. What decision? That Caleb deserved time and I deserved containment. She closed her eyes. I continued. Inspector General just made the consequences visible. She nodded. That's fair. And the badge? You lost Blackridge because the department decided you couldn't keep command after what happened. I know. I didn't take it. I know. That was the title version truth people outside would never understand. One call. Badge gone. But the call did not contain magic. It only reached the system that already had authority to judge what she had done. Marissa looked at me. I used to hate that distinction. What changed? I work in compliance now. That made both of us laugh. Quietly. Then she held out her hand. Not for a handshake. Just there. I took it. For several seconds, we stood in a courthouse hallway holding hands like married people after the paperwork said we were not. Then Marissa let go first. I should get back. Regional? Yes. Big case? A superintendent wants to skip an evidence audit because the facility is short-staffed. Let me guess. You already know my answer. No? No. She smiled. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Marissa. She walked toward the elevator. I watched until the doors closed. Then I went downstairs and drove back to Greyline. At 1:20, Priya came into my office carrying a maintenance schedule. You're officially divorced? Yes. You okay? Yes. She looked skeptical. I'm functional. Better. I handed her the old Blackridge credential. Destroy this through compliance. She looked at it. Sure. Yes. Priya nodded and took it. No ceremony. No keepsake. No reason to preserve an access card to a place I no longer needed to enter. That afternoon, Greyline received Blackridge's next maintenance request. Proper notice. Defined outage window. Regional approval attached. No undocumented extensions. I signed nothing. Priya handled it. At 4:03, Marissa's compliance office approved the security plan. Neither of us spoke. The system did not need us to. Her badge was gone. My access was gone. The marriage was gone. And for the first time since I found Caleb's case, every line between us was finally where it belonged. A year after the night I called the Inspector General, Blackridge Correctional Center sent Greyline its annual security audit. I almost deleted the email. Priya handled the contract now. I had not been inside Blackridge since the evening Marissa ordered interview 3 locked behind me. But the audit copied every executive listed on the original state contract, and my name had never been removed from that distribution group. I opened it. No contraband scandal. No emergency command failure. No dramatic finding. The biggest issue was embarrassingly ordinary. 3 staff access readers needed replacement. 2 cameras had developed intermittent packet loss. 1 housing unit door sensor generated nuisance alarms during high humidity. That was what I wanted a prison security report to look like. Boring. I scrolled farther. Evidence control compliance, 98.7%. Intelligence devices, 100% logged before extraction. Camera maintenance exceptions, 0 undocumented. Civilian secure room placements, 0. I stopped there. Not because the number surprised me. Because somebody had deliberately added that category after what happened to me. 1 year. 0. Good. I forwarded the report to Priya with 1 line. Remove me from the Blackridge distribution list. She replied. Finally. I smiled. Then closed the file. Greyline had grown during that year. Not because of Blackridge. The state contract stayed roughly the same size. We won 2 county detention projects and a courthouse security modernization job. Priya became president of operations. I stayed chief executive but spent less time on individual facilities. That had been coming anyway. The Blackridge investigation accelerated it. I had learned that knowing every wire in a building did not mean I needed to be the person standing beside every technician. Marissa had learned a similar lesson from the other side of authority. We spoke occasionally. Rarely. No late-night calls. No attempt to build a friendship immediately after divorce. She sent a message on our daughter Claire's birthday. I sent one when Marissa's mother had surgery. At Thanksgiving, Claire invited both of us to her apartment in Milwaukee. I almost asked whether Marissa was comfortable with that. Then decided Claire was 22 years old and should not have to manage our divorce like a prison movement schedule. We both went. Marissa arrived carrying pie. I brought wine. Claire looked between us in the doorway. You two are going to be normal, right? Marissa said, define normal. Claire groaned. I laughed. That helped. Dinner was fine. Not easy. Fine. Marissa asked about Grayline. I asked about regional compliance. Neither of us mentioned Caleb. His case had ended months earlier. 7 years in state prison, followed by supervision. He lost his corrections career permanently. The 2 officers who helped him move Contraband were convicted too. The medical technician received a lesser sentence after cooperating. The state's final criminal report concluded Caleb had used legitimate intelligence practices, command trust, and maintenance information to build a trafficking network gradually enough that no single irregularity looked large until somebody found the case containing everything at once. That somebody happened to be me. I did not feel heroic about it. Mostly lucky. If the equipment box had been 6 feet farther down the corridor, I might never have seen it. Captain Navarro's earlier complaint had been the real warning. The system simply failed to listen soon enough. After dinner, Claire cornered me in the kitchen. Mom looks better. She does. She's different. Probably. Claire lowered her voice. She told me she doesn't want to be warden again. That surprised me. Marissa had not told me. Did she say why? She said she spent too long thinking command was the highest version of her career. I looked toward the living room. Marissa was washing dishes even though Claire kept telling her to stop. What does she want? Apparently Helena is retiring next year. Regional Compliance Director. I understood. Marissa wants the job? Claire shrugged. She said maybe. That fit her better than I expected. Not a return to command. Something new. Later that night, while we were putting on coats, I asked Marissa directly. Claire says Helena may retire. Marissa gave our daughter an annoyed look. Claire smiled and disappeared into the bedroom. Traitor, Marissa muttered. So? She is. You applying? I haven't decided. Why not? Marissa took her time. A year ago, I would have applied before the posting existed. That sounds accurate. I still want it. Then apply. She looked at me. You make that sound simple. It is. What if wanting authority again means I haven't learned anything? That's not what happened. She waited. You didn't fail because you wanted authority. No. You failed because you treated authority like permission to slow down a rule when you trusted your own judgment more. Her expression softened. Compliance Director has more authority than I do now. Then use it correctly. A small smile appeared. You would have been terrible at therapy. I'm not trying to be your therapist. I know. That helped us both. 3 months later, Marissa applied. She did not tell me. Claire did. Again. This time I refused to participate. If Marissa wanted advice, she could ask. She didn't. The department interviewed 5 candidates. Marissa was not the obvious choice. Her disciplinary record was permanent. Anyone reading her file saw Blackridge. Failure to manage conflict. Delayed mandatory notification. Unauthorized confinement. Removed from command. Those words did not disappear because she had spent a year writing good compliance findings. She also had 21 years in corrections. Facility command experience. Crisis management. A year of regional audit work. And, according to Helena, an unusually low tolerance for undocumented exceptions. I laughed when Claire told me that part. The trait had cost her one job and become an asset in another. The department selected her in May. Regional Compliance Director. No facility command badge. No authority to run a prison. But every warden in the region now had to answer her office when evidence controls, use of force review, conflict management, or policy exceptions failed. She called me the evening the appointment became official. I got it. Congratulations. Thank you. Does it feel different? From Blackridge? Yes. A pause. Very. How? At Blackridge, everybody looked at me for the answer. And now? My job is mostly making sure the person with the answer can prove why. That sounds healthier. It is. She laughed. Also far more paperwork. Tragic. Then she said, they issued my new credentials. Badge? No. Her voice carried something I could not quite name. Regional directors get a state identification shield for field access, but it's not a command badge. Does that bother you? Not anymore. That answer came easily. Good. In June, Claire graduated from her master's program. Marissa and I sat beside each other in a crowded university auditorium because our daughter threatened to assign seats if we behaved badly. We behaved. Afterward, Claire wanted photographs. First with me. Then Marissa. Then both of us. For half a second, I wondered if taking a picture together would feel dishonest. It didn't. We were divorced. We were also her parents. Both facts survived. Claire stood between us and smiled while someone took the photograph. Marissa's hand never reached for mine. Mine never reached for hers. No mixed signal. No private promise hiding behind a family moment. After lunch, Marissa and I walked toward the parking structure together. She said, "Do you ever regret the divorce?" The question was quiet. Not an invitation. I thought about lying because the truth was complicated. Then didn't. I regret that we needed one. She nodded. That's different. Yes. Do you regret making the call? No. She smiled faintly. You never hesitate on that one. I shouldn't. I agree. We stopped beside her car. Marissa looked at me. I used to think that call took everything. Your badge. My command. My reputation for a while. Caleb's career. Our marriage. Caleb took his own career. I know. And the call didn't end the marriage. I know that too. She did now. That mattered. The call just got people into the room who had authority to look at what happened, I said. Yes. What they found came from us. Mostly me. Mostly. She smiled without humor. Still not letting me rewrite that. No. Good. She opened her car door. Then paused. Ethan. Yes? I'm glad you called. That one surprised me. She saw it. I hated you for it for about 48 hours. I assumed. Then I hated myself. That wasn't useful. No. And now? She looked toward the university buildings. Now I think if you hadn't called, I might have found some administrative explanation for Caleb's case, handed it to regional the next morning, and spent the rest of my career never understanding how close I was to using authority as a shield. Maybe. Or maybe Captain Navarro would have escalated anyway. Maybe Ramon would. Maybe somebody else would. We would never know. I said, you don't need to make the call bigger than it was. Marissa smiled. Compliance answer. I've been contaminated. She laughed. Then got into the car. That autumn, Blackridge renewed Greyline for another 3 years. I did not attend the contract meeting. Priya did. Captain Elise Navarro, now Deputy Warden under Terrence Hale, signed the facility authorization. Marissa's regional office approved the compliance package. Everything moved through people whose roles made sense. Nobody needed the former married couple in the same room. One afternoon, Priya dropped an old evidence envelope on my desk. What's this? Archive cleanup. Inside was a printed still image from Blackridge's administrative lobby. Timestamp, 8:48 p.m. The night of the incident. Marissa leaving the conference room. Regional administrator beside her. Her badge visible through the clear property envelope in his hand. Me standing 20 feet away. I had seen the moment in person. The camera made it look colder. What do you want me to do with this? I asked. Retention period expired for our internal incident copy. Your call. I looked at it for a few seconds. Then fed it into the secure shred bin. Priya raised an eyebrow. No sentimental scrapbook? No. Healthy. Get out. She laughed and left. I sat there afterward thinking about badges. Marissa's old one had symbolized authority over one institution. Mine had been a contractor credential that let me move through it. Both were gone. The new arrangement was better. Not because losing things automatically makes people wiser. Sometimes loss only hurts. Wisdom came from knowing what not to rebuild exactly as it had been. Marissa never returned to Blackridge Command. I never returned there as a contractor. We never remarried. Caleb never became the explanation for choices that belonged to us. And interview 3 remained just another locked room inside a prison I no longer needed to enter. One call took Marissa's badge that night. A year later, she held different credentials, in a different office, doing work that required her to question the kind of exceptions she once defended. I thought that was a fair ending for her career. As for us, there was no second marriage waiting behind professional redemption. No reunion after enough apologies. No reward for suffering correctly. There was simply distance without hatred. Respect without trust. History without ownership. And when my phone rang now, I never wondered whether the person on the other end needed permission from someone I loved before doing what the rules already required. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.